But just because you're going to church on Sunday doesn't necessitate that you're going to make sure, hey, I'm putting my wife first. Hey, I'm putting our family first.
Every golf club you go into, it's okay the 55-year-old guys there because their wives kind of want to break, you know. But when I say to people all the time, don't be part of the men's grill mafia. That means you're a dummy. When you're sitting at men's grill and he's always down there. Well, he shouldn't be. He should be at work or he should be at home, especially if he's 35, 45, 50. And people, for some reason, don't get, they think they're supposed to be there on a Saturday. I'm leaving to play golf, for example. I'll be home in 7 hours. That's insane. Yeah. If you love golf, get up at 6 a.m., go play 9 holes and be home by 8 a.m.
Yeah.
And bring home donuts or whatever you have to do.
Welcome to the neighborhood. We're so glad you joined us and tuned in for today's episode.
If Mike's voice sounds a couple octaves lower, it's because he's fighting off a cold.
I am. 'Tis the season, right?
Yeah.
All the changes in temperature. I
don't compare his voice right now to like podcast number 1 or 2. You're going to be like, is this the same person?
I know. It's funny when we listen back, because we've been doing this for 10 years.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, was it the audio tuning? Why did my voice sound so different?
You were so young and fresh, you know.
Is that what it was?
Now you're just old and tired.
Yeah. Ain't that the truth?
Oh my gosh. All righty. Well,
we have a great interview here, a conversation I was able to have that I think you're going to really enjoy.
Very smart financial advice.
Some great insight into how to maintain a marriage when building a business.
Yeah.
Some financial strategies as you're looking at growth. And he's a financial advisor he's seen on Fox News, Wall Street Journal. They have him. He does a lot of stuff throughout the country. Great businessman.
And we've known them for, over 10 years, because
Probably.
I think we were, we were in Pittsburgh and we met them a long time ago. So Chris and Molly McMahon are going to be joining us. So it's kind of cool that we get to have them on the podcast after knowing them for so long, you know.
All right. So some good content there. Before we jump into that conversation, we have coming up very quickly at the end of this month, the family board meeting. If you are looking at moving from frantic to a more intentional family life, you probably want to do a family board meeting.
Right.
If you are considering, you want more from your family life, you want to have a family culture but don't know where to start, that you want to move things along.
If you're looking at the next school year and you're trying to figure out, what are we going to do with school with our kids, or maybe you're looking at moving or whatever, anything that is coming up in your life right now, do the family board meeting. And the last time we did it, we kind of like rearranged how it's done.
Yeah.
And so it is very, very flexible. So we have a lot of time for mentoring. So what you do is that you sign up and we have one session on Friday night. You'll get an intro video that you can watch whenever you're ready. We do a live session on Friday night to launch you. Then all day Saturday, we make ourselves available for mentoring. We'll just be available. You come on, we will help you through. But you and your spouse can watch the videos teaching you how to do the family board meeting on your own time. So you can watch the videos, jump into mentoring, go through the workbook. It's very, very flexible. And I think it really worked well.
And we have a special invitation for those maybe outside the U.S. We've tried to both with our friends in the U.S. and those outside, making those mentoring times accessible for those who maybe don't always have the times to meet there. Again, all of it will be recorded, so if you miss anything, it is available to you.
It's no excuse to not do it.
You can't
say you don't have the time because it's all recorded. So
that's right. And for those in the U.S., we will ship off and mail materials to you. Those outside the U.S., we do have digital resources and recommendations on other resources to get. All right, so that's number one. And
also, people are probably thinking about vacations over the summer, but what you really need to think about is a vacation, not just a vacation, not just a retreat, but a getaway.
That's right.
With your spouse in September. And we are doing a getaway with Art and Lorraine Bennett, who are experts on temperaments.
Yes.
And they are going to be joining us for some special presentations, special mentoring in Florida. So if you've wanted to do a getaway, we've had lots of people say, we want to do it, but it's out of our price range, or we don't want to leave the country. Guess what? Florida's not another country.
It's beautiful.
Florida is beautiful.
It's one of the top-rated resorts in Fort Lauderdale.
And we just talked to friends of ours from Florida, and they said, Fort Lauderdale too. That is really hardly ever gets hit by hurricanes or anything. So if you're thinking, that's hurricane season, not for that part of Florida. And it is very accessible financially, we really, really hope you come.
Yeah. So sign up at CatholicCouplesGetaway.com for the getaway or messyfamilyproject.org for the course. Yeah. All right. Well, let's jump into the conversation I had with Chris and Molly McMahon. Chris and Molly, thank you for joining us today. We've known you for a while now.
Time's flying.
I know. And but Chris, you have had MFA financial advisor, MFA Wealth.
MFA Wealth for 30 years. Normal kind of secular investment firm. Yeah.
And you've started a new firm or new outlet with Aquinas, as well as Molly. You have both helped found Mary's Place. You've been married for 36 years, 5 children. You guys have done it all. You know, you've got a lot going on. Like I love to see the work that you do. And then hopefully we'll get to talk about, Catholics at the Shore and other stuff. But first, just tell me a little bit about you as a family, as a couple, and then where you're at.
So Chris and I met at Duquesne University way back in the 80s.
Beautiful.
So we've been married 35 years we'll be 36 this July. We have 5 kids, 34 to 24.
There you go.
2 girls and 3 boys.
Successfully launched.
They're all
they are.
active.
Those living in the basement right now.
I wouldn't say we're not supplementing a few of them.
We're still paying for 4 cell phones.
Yeah.
On Wall Street, we're paying for cell phones. How's that?
Something is wrong with this.
But we have 3 weddings in 15 months. So one has been married in August. We have one coming up in a week, good a half, and then one in November. So
oh my goodness,
it's a blessing. Yeah, we have 3 beautiful, in-laws joining our family. We're just so thrilled about, and life is really great right now. We're blessed.
Very cool.
It is. Yeah.
And so you've been doing the businesses for a while now. Wealth advisor,
some kind of
managing money.
Yes.
And
86, can you believe it?
Wow.
Normal, secular, don't talk about religion, don't talk about faith, don't talk about religion or politics. And that's completely changed on its ear over the years. As Molly and I have gotten involved in more and more stuff, people are asking me things and wondering about, and as the world has also been a little crazier, you may be familiar with that, so a little crazier. So as a result of that, we started a completely separate investment advisory firm specifically for Catholics, where they can kind of see behind the curtain, understand what they're supporting, and making sure we've developed technology that allows them to see what they're supporting, how their money's doing, which is important. Performance is important, but also really help them get hopefully align more specifically with their faith, which is super important.
That's a big deal. So we got to know each other a little bit through Legatus. Legatus in Pittsburgh, as Alicia and I were members through the university, but you guys have helped lead and were a part of things for many years. Were you always cradle Catholics? Was the faith always something important to you growing up? And
we were both cradle Catholics, but I think Legatus was a jumping off point for both of us to become more invested in our faith. It was, I guess, a reversion. Not really, because we never, moved away from the faith. We always went to church. Our children went to Catholic schools. I went to Catholic schools. And yeah, it's just been a boon to our faith. We have met so many beautiful Catholics, done so many beautiful things with them, and learned so much about our faith, and understand that there's still so much more to learn.
Yeah. Everybody who I know in Legatus, Legatus is a CEO's organization, right?
Yes.
It's primarily oriented towards business leaders, couples who are managing being a faithful Catholic while leading in the business space, right? And that's. I've always been encouraged when I've met people like yourselves, to be honest with you, who are able, and so that had a renewal effect, if you will.
We went to Medjugorje for the first time. I remember for Molly and I were getting involved. Our kids were growing up. We only had 5, so we were half of where you guys are left.
We've got extras though.
Yeah, exactly. So we were trying to figure it out. Our kids were getting older, and I think we were asking ourselves, were we leading a life that, I always say this, I want to lead a life that my wife is proud of. I want to lead a life that my children are proud of. Excuse me. I always say this now.
Yeah.
I didn't always say that, right? Exactly. And I said, I regretted probably not being more understanding of the role of the father and the husband to be at the very least admirable in their behavior.
Yes.
And some of the behaviors we're all so embarrassed about. I was laughing. I was thinking about Duquesne. This makes me laugh when I met Molly. You know, everybody says the same thing. She's wonderful. I don't know why she tolerates him, right? That's what they all say. And then I laugh. My mother, who's the greatest, every time I'm on TV, I'll get a text from my mom. My mother calls me Stove, Christopher. Stove, you're doing great. You're doing, and I show it to Maria Borderomo. Look, I'm doing great, Maria. My mom said so. But I laugh because everyone always, my mother included, will thank my mother specifically, who's great. She always both apologizes to Molly for my behavior, whatever it is, and thanks her for still being married to me, right? So we feel very blessed about that. But I always think of the story when we were in Duquesne, 1983 or 4, and I said, I knew that, you know, I wanted Molly. I knew, you know, I would get the better end of the deal if we were to be able to.
Yes, you definitely married up.
Yeah, I'm married up. But I remember this vividly on the 3rd floor of Towers at Duquesne. And I looked at her dead in the eye and said, 6th floor of Towers at Duquesne, maybe. And I looked her dead in the eye and I said, Molly, I love you. And she looked back at me and said, thank you. And I've been chasing her ever since.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
And then to see her family, is her family, her mother and father, the love they had, the relationship they have, the 6 kids they have.
Yeah.
We were very different. My mother did a great job, and my father was. I always, when I talk, I show a picture of us, or my family, the 4 of us. We were little kids. Beautiful picture. With our little bow ties on, we look cute as can be. And it looks like a lovely little, you know, Osgood Harriet moment. I might be dating myself with that reference, but it looks like that kind of moment. Yeah, exactly. But I look at that picture, I say, I said to Molly, I remember that picture was taken. That picture was taken the day we moved home from my abusive alcoholic father and moved back to Pittsburgh. So even though it looked like this beautiful picture of 4 kids, and my mother did great. She raised us all. We're wonderful.
Yeah.
But it's nothing like the experience when I saw Molly's husband and Molly's mother and father and the kids and the way they loved everybody. And Molly's dad's been gone for 13 years.
Yeah.
And I think about just what unbelievable, like how he and his wife were
So
so beautiful.
So you came from a single.
My mother raised us.
Right, yeah. So my parents got divorced before I got into high school. My dad was an alcoholic.
Yes.
And Alicia had a very intact, loving, amazing family that I married into.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you really see and go, wow,
Yes.
that's better.
It is huge. It is a massive. But you were like, wow, I can do this.
Yeah.
Like that. There's something. There's something powerful about this because did you always think you could have it, you know, meaning a family life? Because for me, it was a question, like, could I do this? Because I didn't have a dad. You know, was that a struggle for you coming in as a dad, as a husband, not having that experience?
Yeah, I was a train wreck. I didn't know how to do it, and I didn't know what I was supposed to do. Yeah. And I didn't have, you know, I still regret it. I said when Mom and I got married, I didn't even ask her dad for her hand in marriage. So I think, how could that be possible today, knowing what I know? I didn't know you were supposed to do that. Now, look, I told him 100 times, I regret that deeply, and I love your daughter with all my heart. He said, I understand, I forgive you, and stop saying this all the time. Because I just wanted him to understand how much I loved her. And I think, it was beautiful to see that example. I remember one time we were sitting there. I'm sorry.
I'm just going to say, he's so grateful for what we have. Whereas I think it's just normal, right? This is, I think we're blessed. Of course, things could happen, but I guess because I came from a stable home and it's just the way things go. But
getting emotional here, man. Yeah.
So that's beautiful because Alicia and I often talk about how she would, she looks out at me and says, "Oh, I didn't take anything for granted," and she had probably expectations that we would have a marriage. That's what it's up, right? Yeah, and that's beautiful. But I came in with there's something about like just little scrappers, like we're gonna do this, but I'm not gonna take it for granted either. So that's beautiful.
Yeah, so it's a great. I remember I was thinking of just one thing. I think of all the things I've seen in my life. One of the most impactful, which sounds so minor and so ridiculous and so small. We were in Philly, this big old house where they raised their 6 kids, and it's a train wreck, and there's grandkids everywhere. And my father-in-law Hap, his name was Harry. They called him Hap, and my mother-in-law Jeanette, they're beautiful, and she's still with us. And I think he was doing something and she was doing something and she went by him and put down a piece of cake, and I saw he just kind of tapped her on the wrist. I said, there it is. And I'm not explaining that to what that is, but I said, that's what this is all about, right? It was just, I don't know, I can't describe it, but I don't know. Yeah.
Just the little moments.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. But you experienced that, but then you witnessed it.
Yes.
Too. You saw it. And,
yes.
And you know, from the world's eyes, let me phrase it this way.
Sure.
I think that a lot of young families, young couples today, look out at people like you and even at us, and they're like, that's what I want.
Yes.
And they might look at it from a financial standpoint, but they might look at it from a religious standpoint. They might look at it from the family, from the kids. You know, there's all these different, but they often compare and say, I want to start
where they are right now. And have you noticed that? You know,
Sure.
And they want to just forget all the challenges and the struggle. Did you guys have any struggles?
No.
You guys were
Oh,
easy.
It was easy breezy the whole way.
Because I
Three
think
boys that were risk takers. You know, the girls, I didn't have a problem. Like, I know a lot of mom and daughters struggle, but I thought it was pretty easy. But those boys really,
they put you up to the
my
limit.
money.
Yes. Well, and I think that's I think I want to unpack some. You know, we're a messy family, right? And so
Sure.
when you look back at your family life, right, particularly, and thinking of the couples who are looking and saying, "That's what I want. I want to end up there." But we want to paint a bit of a picture of how, maybe some of the challenges, some of the challenges that you've experienced, whether it be in your marriage, whether it be balancing a very busy work life, right? And all of that comes into it.
I mean, I think it was something specific. I remember a couple things that really stand out to me. We were married 4 or 5 years, and Molly and I were always buddies, and we were buddies. And I feel, thank God for every minute. I would say this to people: when you hear something funny, call your wife. That's the person you call. There's no one else to call. Everyone else outside. Everyone else is on the other team, right? So I remember though thinking there one time I was grinding and trying to build a financial services practice, which is horrible. Actually, when I was sitting on your porch, I said to Molly, "This reminds me of 30 years ago when I go to people's houses and say, 'Do you have a Roth IRA?'" And I'm fortunate not to have to do that right now.
Yes.
But I remember vividly saying to Molly one time, we were running and doing so many things, and I said, "Molly, we have a great relationship." She said, "I don't know if we have any relationship." She said that to me. I remember that, just thinking, okay, everything I've done to this point is wrong. Literally, because Molly's not a meanie, or she's a kind, beautiful person. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to reevaluate everything, right? Yeah. And we, over time with the kids, you know, you get in that zone where you're just managing, you know, that zone, you're still in that zone, right? You're managing and running. But I also remember vividly one time when we got past that and we were, you know, doing so really on the same team. And I said, if I'm not working, I'm at home, right? If I'm not working, I'm at home. And those are and if I'm out, I can't do stupid things. Like I can't go meet people. If it generates business, advances the family, that's fine.
Yes.
If it's not really legitimate, forget about it.
Yes.
And one time, I remember vividly, we were staying on the porch at our house, and we were probably 33 years old, probably 5 kids. We were trying to buy a mattress, I think, right? We were trying to buy a mattress, and literally, I think it was Gimbals and stuff. It was somebody, Coppins.
Yeah.
Coppins. We couldn't be. Yeah, our card was maxed. We couldn't buy a mattress. I said, "Oh my, this is hilarious." Now that to us made us laugh a little bit because we're like, "Dear Lord, how do we get this position?" But that because we had the core in the team, that was more funny than it was, "Oh, this is catastrophic."
But you develop that teamwork though.
Absolutely.
And that's how we have found, right? And not that we have experienced those moments as well where I'm like, hey, I think we're doing great, right? As not so much. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's good to have that. But the teamwork really does make the dream work. I mean, you know, in that sense, right?
Yeah.
And
have a partner that has your back. You know, you like. I think a big thing with the children is to try to have that united front with them. You know what I mean? And not like throw your spouse under the bus, you know, or dad made me do that. You know, no, they never it was never like, well, wait till your father comes home. No, it's just like, we're going to take care of it in the real time. And he's going to come home and he's going to be fine with whatever I had done, and vice versa most of the time.
Yeah. Most of the time. Well, that's real. That's honest.
Even if we're not going to totally agree, we'll at least, you know, try to present that to the children that we did, you know,
yes. And sometimes I felt like we were just faking it until we made it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So we get this question a lot, where families are like, how do I make time for all of this? You're building a business,
yes,
which is not a light job. You know,
Sure.
It's intense, and I know there's a real genuine struggle. And I've experienced it. I've had an apartment in other states, you know, in working on different things, right? And so how do you do it? How do you, in the midst of busyness, right? How do you make time for each other? How do you, you know, the wins and losses, the ups and the downs, right? We all we all have moments where we wish we had done things differently, but we also are like, okay, this is what actually got us through. This is how we worked through this stuff.
Any advice, his thoughts?
I was just thinking of a time where we had 3 or 4 kids. I think we had maybe 3 or 4. We were riding to church one day, Easter Sunday. It was just, bad luck, just 4 kids at that time. And we got out of the car, and Molly was tired and tense, and we were 2 minutes late for church. We're running to the mass, and she looked lovely. And Jack, God bless him, threw up all over her. Sorry. I'm not going to.
I had this feeling so good. I think he was probably like 6 months old, and I had like a nice suit on, and I felt, like kind of back to my body.
Yeah.
And my knees.
I remember her and I together laughing about that. Like, I remember us
At the moment, were you laughing at? All right, that's awesome.
This is life. I was able to.
That's the Messy Family brand right there. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, she went home, and then I took the kids to the church, and then she came back, and it was like, fine. And we had a great. But like, that's because of her. I always had problems where I would immediately go to rage, which I don't think is a good tool. That's not a good sign.
It's not as effective as you think it is.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost completely. Can immediately go to rage. That was never, or to be a disciplinary, because I thought that's what you're supposed to be.
Yes.
And I realized that was probably a mistake too. And so much I'm always kindness and nurturing. I mean, I look at the kids; they're beautiful, wonderful people because of what she did. Right? She led them so well in terms of being compassionate, beautiful, kind people. And most of them, I think, are not all of them. We're getting there, but the faith stuff, we're trying to beat it into their brains a little bit. Now they're and one of our sons said to one of his friends the other day, or maybe it was 6 months ago, whatever the other day was, he said, I said to a sibling, Mom and Dad are, they're doing some faith stuff, but it's not like they're like, praying at abortion clinics or something. I mean, they're not crazy. And the other Katie, her daughter, said, I'd pump the brakes on. You've been home a little while. It's good.
You got to see a little something behind this script.
It's a little more than maybe you think. So, but I think that basis of faith, belief in God, particularly now as we're doing all this stuff, and they like the Mary's Place and the other things, the Catholics at the Shore, they see that, and I think they admire, and I think
they do. Yeah, just because we're doing what we believe. Just talking. It's like we're in action. We're trying to be.
Yeah.
And I used to think it's appropriate to hang around with everybody and do business with everybody, and because you're building a business, so you can't be too exclusionary. Plus, you can also help people, be a role model for them to get better. But I realized most of the time, though, that wasn't true. What I was doing was hanging around or even doing business with people, ultimately, that wouldn't work out long term, because when you're out of sync philosophically, you won't even have a long-term business relationship. So it's a waste of time long-term.
Yes.
But what I found was a lot of these folks were like, they would talk poorly about their wives, right? Or talk.
Yeah.
I never understood that. Or like they would say, you'd be in an event. I remember it was an event once, and somebody said, hey, we're all going down to the street to how do I say this, like a gentleman's club.
Yeah.
So I was like,
the ungentleman.
Yeah, I don't know any gentleman that go to that place, right? I'm like, are you out of your mind? I mean, I thought he was kidding.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I think when guys make the decision to love their wives first, I always say never be embarrassed to love your wife, right? That's the most important thing you can ever say. I say it to our kids all the time. Never be embarrassed to love your wife, particularly, and above all, and not take that approach of saying, in the phone range.
How did you learn that? How did you, because I don't think you learned it at home necessarily.
I don't know.
I don't know either, but he's so intentional about
and this was really before the renewal in faith too. Like,
yeah, very much. Because I mean, it's really self-serving, because she's great. And I don't want to lose her, right?
Oh, you're not dumb. Good. That's right. I knew you were smart.
I don't know anything, but this is the only thing I knew from the beginning. This is the only thing. Not from the beginning, almost the beginning. This is the only thing that matters. Right?
Yeah.
And then I think to myself, what about these kids? My Lord, think about that. If my daughter knew I was going to walk down the street with these knuckleheads, this stupid place, or spend time at the Duquesne Club bar instead of being at home, what is that? Who does that? What kind? Is that
who would I be?
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
And then
my dad too. He was a school teacher. He coached football, and then he had a restaurant. So, and my mother said the same thing. Like, if Dad's not home, he's doing something for the family. You know what I mean? He's not out with his buddies carousing or, serving his own desires.
Yes.
So I think maybe that you just witnessed that. But
That's awesome, because that wouldn't be as natural as you'd think in our world, right? And it's unique. And I mean, having that perspective, again, being faithful Catholics, going to church on Sunday helps kind of in that worldview that you're in a better crowd. But just because you're going to church on Sunday doesn't necessitate that you're going to make sure,
hey, I'm putting my wife first. Hey, I'm putting our family first.
Every golf club you go into, it's okay the 55-year-old guys there because their wives kind of want to break, But when I say to people all the time, don't be part of the men's grill market. That means you're a dummy. When you're sitting at men's grill and he's always down there. Well, he shouldn't be. He should be at work or he should be at home, especially if he's 35, 45, 50. And people, for some reason, don't get, they think they're supposed to be there on a Saturday. I'm leaving to play golf, for example. I'll be home in 7 hours. That's insane. Yeah. If you love golf, get up at 6 a.m., go play 9 holes and be home by 8 a.m.
Yeah.
And bring home donuts or whatever you have to do.
All right. So when you're busy traveling, right?
Yes.
For work, how did you make sure she knew that you were her priority?
I didn't do a good job of that. I don't think
No, that's not true. He was always on the phone. He was always calling.
Okay.
Honestly,
because people want to know what works, what keeps because there are a lot of people who just feel like their jobs are pulling at them, but they know they need to do X or feel called into this. But how do we keep the marriage strong?
And I think it's a decision you make every day. If the meeting starts on Monday morning, don't go Sunday afternoon. Go 5 o'clock in the morning on Monday. Yeah. Right? Yeah. If the meeting's over Thursday at 3, say what's really happening in the afternoon on Thursday. What's really happening in the morning on Thursday? I'm going home late Wednesday night. Yeah. I remember one time I took a flight to Phoenix for a conference and I laughed. I went to I was like, oh, get a lot done. I got my, my cool packet for the meeting. I'm involved. I walk around and see everybody I want to see. It was a Sunday. I got there, checked in the hotel, got my stuff, talked to all the people. There's 3,000 people this conference. It was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday. The meeting went to Wednesday. I said, I got all my stuff. I got to get all the tapes from the talks I want to hear, because they'll send them to me. I went back to the airport and I said, I just want to, she's like, you're out of your mind. And it wasn't, I just like, this is great. I got pumped up for the meeting. I was supposed to pump you up. I was pumped up. Yeah. I got what I was supposed to get. I saw my people.
Check.
The same flight crew was on the return flight to Pittsburgh. And the lady said to me, are you, I said, yeah, I got it all done. She's like, okay. And I got on a plane and went home. And I felt like that's what I was supposed, it was not like some sacrifice. I preferred it. I think that's the thing. You have to program yourself. What do you prefer? Do you want to sit around at the Phoenician with a group of vague acquaintances, talking about dumb stuff, or you want to go home?
So you were able to accomplish your business objectives, but then actually have a life.
Yes.
With your wife, with your family.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what people need to hear, is that you can make choices. Because again, when you're low on the rungs of the ladder, sometimes it doesn't always feel like you have choices. Even then, we still have some choices, right? I think we too quickly just say, I have to fall in line.
Yeah, and I've been talking to people, young people on it. I've been getting a chance to speak more and more. And I say, look, another thing you can do absolutely is a very important thing. If you're working at a big company and people showing you gross stuff on their phones and let's go to do this, right? Let's go to happy hour. Put a little crucifix on your desk. It'll change everything, because it shows an image that all I care about is God Almighty and my family. And people won't tell you gross stuff. They won't show you weird things on their phone. It'll change.
It's a filter. You'll block.
Yeah, it's a little note.
It changes the culture of the office.
Yes.
Yes, and I think instead of being embarrassed by that, we don't have to go crazy. But if we're saying, here's what's going on, certainly get your ashes as early as you can on Ash Wednesday, so everybody in the office sees it all day. Yeah. All those things I think matter, because that's the same. We build brick by brick, like we're trying to build our, we're building a house, we're building brick by brick. Hopefully I'm the guy that makes the right decisions. I make wrong decisions all the time. Yeah. But I think that's a good strategy to, I don't want to say fake it till you make it, but make tangible steps towards being, because everyone says the same thing. I want to be that guy right now. Yeah. I want to be a successful business guy, family person, woman, doing all these things. And it's not. It's a progression, right?
Beautiful. Molly, from your perspective, knowing his life was very frenetic at probably many times. What worked for you? What helped you? What kept the two of you connected from your perspective, and things that you did?
I think it was that being in communication all the time, whether I really wanted to know this little story about what happened at work, it put us in touch with each other all the time, every day, and I think Legatus did help us a lot, and his business helped us a lot, because we got to go out, social, like for work, entertaining clients and things like that. So we
could do it together.
We could do it together. We were in the car, going to a dinner. We had time to connect, before the dinner, and then on the way home before we had to rush back into the house with the kids and the chaos. Yeah. So that was kind of for me, not necessarily a huge, outgoing person. It was hard work, but at the same time, it gave us time to connect with each other.
Beautiful.
So that was a great thing.
Even though it was his business, did you feel partners with him on that? Or yeah,
Definitely. Yeah.
because that's a big deal.
Yeah, and that's to say, it's such a relational business that he has, and by telling me, like, I wouldn't be in the meetings, of course, but he would tell me a little bit about the clients, and what they're going through in their lives, and their families and things like that. So when we would talk, I knew them, and we've just established some really great friendships with his clients over the years. We count them as really good friends. So yeah, it's.
And I think about that too. And during that process, we also jettisoned people that were not consistent with them. They always say, hang around on jettison. Said, see you later. I would play hang around. Friends that would say things like, hey, don't tell your wife this. I was like, okay, we can't be friends anymore. Anybody says that sentence, like, unless they're saying, don't tell your wife, I'm buying my wife an anniversary band that she'll know, whatever. Like, even that I would tell. There's no, anybody who starts a sentence, don't tell it. If somebody says, don't tell anybody this, what they mean is don't tell anybody other than your wife this. The idea that we're going to keep something for our spouses is insane to me. Yeah. And the basic building block is full transparency. And also what Maul said, having the back of the person all the time. How gross is it if you're thinking, I wonder if my wife's out there making googly eyes to the guy at the gym, or my husband's out there trying to impress some young intern, whatever. That stuff is all gross and negative, and it's the devil.
It is. But that needs to be said and needs to be cut out pretty darn quickly. And I think there's many people who they feel it, but they don't say something, or they don't do something about it, and they get caught in it, and they don't know how to get out.
To say it, then I said, right, I feel better saying it.
It does, and it also defines your relationships, because I remember doing that a little bit, and I actually find other people. Oh, I'm so glad you said that. Hey, I heard you did this, and blah blah, and it gives other people the confidence, and you find out, oh, I've got some more friends out there that I realized on the first time, which is helpful. All right, so looking at family, looking at how your faith has gone forward, I think that there is our world is very mixed up. It's very busy with a lot of things that don't matter, and being frantic has become this kind of a mantra for us, like that's saying, hey, you gotta break out of the rat race, What advice, what perspective from your own experience will help people break out of?
Well, we were definitely caught up in that when our kids were growing up.
Yes.
So frantic.
It's always busy,
Sports,
right?
Activities.
Sports are so dumb.
Yeah.
They're so dumb.
Travel this. Chris coached so many things,
Judo and karate we did for 30 years with the kids, I did judo for 30 years with the kids, and I still do it. It's crazy.
You personally?
Yes.
Awesome.
So
maybe you went to like a dojo or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I'm embarrassed. I've got 5 black belts, and the kids I got black belts in judo, karate. I do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and I like it now because it's given me something to do. But the kids always look back and say, oh my gosh, that was brutal, Dad, dragging us there because they didn't want to go.
Yes, of course. But there's a lot of things we drag our kids to.
But at the end, they all say, tell me something interesting about yourself. Well, I have a black belt in judo and karate. I have a state champion in judo. These say, but I don't know. I think.
Well, we didn't do this, but now in retrospect, I think it's so important. Like a friend in a Bible study said, well, our boys never played football because it interrupted dinner time. Yeah. If we were
looking back, what advice would you give yourself, right? What advice would you give your
the sports?
Make a decision and stick to it, Or another one was Sundays. Make them sacred. We did not do that either. They had Catholic football on Sundays,
I would do no sports. I would do no travel sports of any kind, and no special lessons. Because if the kids are good at something, they'll be able to play in high school if they want to. And if the minute they're out of high school, it doesn't matter at all. None of it matters,
I know.
It's so true.
And I've even heard from pro athletes who have said the same thing. They're like, it really doesn't matter. And it's like, trying to specialize too quickly actually often hurts kids if they want to go on later. There's many artists. Yeah, they just have it all. So
any lessons raised up. One thing I think helped us too, Molly and I become over the years, I was fortunate enough to be the vice chair of Legatus for about 8 years. I got a chance to spend a lot of time with Tom Monahan, who I really admire tremendously now. I didn't understand what he did, and I think it's great. And a few other guys like that, but what's fascinating is Molly and I have become full-on stalkers. For example, the Sisters of Life we're very close with, right?
Yes.
So we're about 50 of them, maybe even more that we're buddies with. And what I've always found fascinating about them is they'll engage with you, and whatever you're saying, that's all that matters. Everything else fades away, and they're just lasered in on what you're talking about. And and I think that, so they're in the moment very much, you know?
Yes, they're present right there.
Yeah. And we're also very close to the Sisters of Mary that run rural villages of children. One's in Mexico City. We would lead trips down there for maybe 4 or 5 years. And we take people from our conference Catholics to the shore. And I thought it was fascinating. I was grinding just yesterday. And I'm not as much as I used to be. I'm always, helped me be grateful for things. But I was grinding, and Sister Margin called me. And she called from Tanzania. And I said, hey, she was returning my call. She said, I'm in Africa. It's about 100 degrees today. And she said, how you doing? I said, I should be doing great. Things are wonderful. Things are great. And I found I've created things and annoyed by the things I've created, sister.
First world problem.
Yeah. She said, well, Chris, I'm here. And this boy came in. We found him. He hadn't had any food in 14 days. No food in 14 days. And they had to kind of nurse him a little bit. And then they gave him, I think he ate like 2 pounds of oatmeal when they finally got him where he could eat. And I said, okay, you win.
Okay. Your day. What you're working on.
Exactly.
But it gives you perspective.
Yes.
And I think that I found, particularly as a young family, going out there, trying to make a name, trying to carve out my place. I didn't have that perspective. And, there is the youth, there's the vitality, there's excitement, there's a drive, that there is a beauty to that. But if we lack perspective, we don't always make the best decisions. But when we get that perspective, and I think that's really important to think about, just even for marriage, for family, for our faith, is to always have, people that we can lean on, a community. Because Legatus, I think, was that for you guys, or I don't know if there were other groups, Bible studies or other, but I don't think we're meant to do this alone. And, whether it be connecting with sisters or others, what were some of the lifelines that you look at now that are like, okay, this actually gave us the perspective, the faith, the encouragement, the strength we needed?
Well, like other groups, I was lucky to just be part of a rosary group in our town. A few women that our kids all went to breed school together, and I think the first way I found out about Franciscan was the Wild Goose series. Yeah. We watched it as a group, before we pray. And like those women are still like some of our best couple. Sure. Their husbands are our best friends,
Yeah.
So yeah, we need that community to help keep us, on the right path, to lean on them and to just, they're examples for us,
Sure. Another one I was just thinking, I was about 10 years ago, I said, we should do something in the morning just for the guys. Because I'm tired of like things being at night and taking away from the family, right?
Yeah.
It's dumb. So I said, why don't we do something? I said, I want to have like a church thing, kind of a Bible thing. So I said, why don't we call it Bromentum? Because I thought it was a funny name, cute name. So we started going to church. We found one of the cool priests in Pittsburgh and said, hey, you do 7 a.m. mass. Can you come down afterwards and have a coffee with us? We're going to kick it around, right? So I would.
It's a guys group.
Guys group, Bromentum, yeah. So we would start by insulting everybody. We wanted to be loose and casual, and now here we are. Just the other day, we've been going 10 years now. We're at St. Bernard's now, and I think there was 35 guys there the other day. Beautiful. And for a lot of these guys, and some of them are serious, painful Catholics. There's joy in there, but you can't find it, right? Always, there's people in sales, there's people in compliance, but that Bromentum thing. People come and they unpack some real stuff in there, real stuff.
You're doing life on life, as they say, like just journeying together, being a part of a community where you have a real brotherhood, you have real sisterhoods with your rosary group. Because I feel like that for couples, we need to bring our best self and getting filled up with our faith, getting filled up by, a bromentum. Is that what you
that's what you call it.
Bromentum? Yeah, getting that kind of fills you up so you can, both for work, for family, for marriage.
Father Brian Welding is a great priest, great man. He's our pastor now. And he's such a good guy. He's a deep, deep thinker. And he's very traditional. And he has, we burned more incense in the last 6 months than we did in the last 60 years. It's great. And I didn't think I'd like it. Well, anyway, I laugh because he's so kind, and so he puts in the bulletin that he's got this church on fire, which is great to see. We don't say ladies the poor, ladies of charity, St. Paul's Society, Bromentum. I said I didn't mean for it to be a brand, but it's interesting. It's one of the most active ministries because of the light nature of it. But it's still, there's guys that are coming in, and one guy lost his wife just the other day. We were talking about one of our guys' his son just went into a completely dark lifestyle, and all this kind of stuff that people come in, and then we still are able to take a step back and be grateful. It's that kind of stuff is great.
Yeah, that's important. All right, so kind of switch to some financial stuff here. All right, so married couples, there is a lot of places where people live where they feel like they have to have two incomes to support their family to live, right? And I remember, and I don't mean to get too political, but I when JD Vance was running, I remember him actually talking about, he says, the American dream ought to be that you don't need two incomes to live in America.
How dare he say that?
I know. It was very...
How dare he say that?
And he didn't say they have to, but he said they should have the freedom to, right? And it's a beautiful opportunity. But there's so many people who just don't feel like that's an option. We just came from a whole trip in the UK, and that came up more than once. They were like, I couldn't live in London, outside of London, without both of us working. What would you say?
I said baloney. Here's why.
Good.
Because first of all, we didn't have any income building a business. We knew in our 30s we had no money, right? No money. I mean, that mattress story was just one of many stories of where we didn't have
hitting the wall financially.
Oh, hitting the wall, hitting the falling down 10 feet before we got to the wall. So but I would say this: one of my brother's private equity guy, killing it now, killing it. And he and his wife were living in Chicago, and they clubs and cars and nannies and all this other kind of stuff. And his company was in the Great Recession of '08, lost his job. And it took he was out for 2.5, 3 years.
Yes.
And he's like, wait a second. And he was the primary breadwinner. His wife was an OB-GYN. She was the secondary. Guess what was able to happen? They were able to change their life. The kids stayed in the same school, but they radically changed all the rest of their life. They did it, not to be too political, but they did a Doge move on all their expenses.
Yeah.
Wait a second.
They were ruthless.
This is all malarkey. Kids stayed in the same school. They still had cars. They still had the same absolutely the same fundamental life. Yeah. But we just get so used to we don't need 6 Disney Plus subscriptions.
Yeah, I know that. I know. Yes.
So what we found in the book, we wrote, Faithful Finances. The reason we did that, we said make a family. There it is. Make a family budget. Make a family mission statement. Number one, what do we care about? Who are we, and what do we care about? And secondly, let's make a budget. When we start doing those two things, and we walk people through just completely scatterbrained or a non-faith aligned financial life, we say, here's how you create a faithful financial plan aligned with your life. And I think it's more than just that it should be an option. It should be the ideal, because that's what.
So it's not only possible. You're saying we need to do it.
We need to engineer our lives around that, because on the rest of it, nothing else matters. And what matters to us matters that we're able to, as a husband and wife, raise our children, give them what's ideal. One of our relatives is suffering. She's gone back to work, and she's a highly trained professional. It's killing her. She goes, I don't want to go to work. I don't want to go to work. Maybe I could work. She's very highly trained professional. She might be a medical. She might be able to work. They're talking about midnight to 7 a.m. She might go, hey, that would be pretty good. If I could get that gig, I'm going to do it, because she understands. I mean, who's held a new baby saying, let's give that to somebody else, right? No one wants to do it. Certainly people have. My mother did it. My mother raised us and worked. God bless her.
Yeah.
It was, she did great, but I think my mom would say that wasn't ideal.
Absolutely. Well, and so in Faithful Finances, 6 steps to establishing a Catholic financial life.
Yes.
Pretty impressive.
Yes.
You talk about mission, and you talk about making a budget, right?
Yeah, those are huge.
Because, and we do something that we call the family board meeting. Couples gather together and really trying to create both the mission, but also what do we want from life? Where do we want to be in 10 years from now? And how do we set ourselves up now for that? What are some, again, if you can make it practical for us? Okay, we make a budget. You get ruthless on what you're spending. Crazy subscriptions on.
Absolutely.
What was something that you cut out that you look at and say this, or maybe couples today's?
Sure. Well, mine, I never traveled. I laugh. Our kids are traveling all over the globe. We're going to Ireland. Like one of our sons in Ireland. Like, what do you mean you're going to Ireland? You were just somewhere else. What are you guys talking about? And his idiocy with what is it, Mo? Fiance trip, or what am I thinking of?
Bachelorette
in Phoenix or in DC. How much does it cost to go to these things? $2,000 at a time. How much money do you earn, and what are you saving? So I think the first thing we should cut out is travel. It's dumb. Secondly, we should cut out trying to impress each other so much. It's just so dumb. These young people, like you said, they want to be on third base, and just calm down and be happy that you're on the team. Let's not worry about these things. Yeah. Because I think at the end of the day, when a family board meeting, I think is what you call it.
Yes.
And when you talk about developing a family mission statement, where I want to be 10 years from now, I think it'd be best thing to say, God willing, if we're both here, I want to be deeply in love with my wife.
Amen.
Right? Amen. Secondly, I want my kids not to think I'm an idiot. Yeah. I want to think that I want to
go a little higher than that, but I'm with you.
Maybe after 25 that they admire you. I think we want to make sure they think of us. I would want them to know. I say to my kids all the time, you probably know I'm going to answer with this. They say, absolutely. So I'm like, that's good. So I'm giving a consistent message. We want to I think we want to lead them. And the financial stuff's important too. Not to be crazy with debt, not to be irresponsible with the kids stuff. Be good stewards.
Yeah.
And honestly, as you said, if we're radical and we're hard line with our expenses, you can have a beautiful life in a most sought after communities in the country. And you could do that and send the kids to Catholic school if you will. That you could do all that stuff because the rest of it's malarkey.
Yeah, and I do think it is that I don't know how to phrase it, or I'll get the quote wrong, but it's like if you want a life like no one else, we've got to live today like no one else. Like we've got to make those radical decisions today, right? And it's not always easy to live on beans and rice and whatever it might be, for each family. But it's like this is actually more important for me. Making decisions about jobs and about how we spend money. I mean, it's the money coming in, the money going out are based upon values and what do you value? And it's like most people don't think about it. And if we put first things first, it all seems to somehow come together.
Yeah, to be intentional.
Yeah.
You have to have a plan instead of just winging it, because that's when it all builds up and next thing you know, you're in debt and not doing what you want to do.
I know. And you kind of mentioned this earlier, but with what you're doing with Aquinas now.
Yes, sir.
I don't fully understand all that you're doing, but you talked about a way to look at your finances and how you're investing even right now, because something that I think when you hit a certain point early on, you're trying to survive and you're putting fingers in the dike, holding things together. And you go into that, I think, here, right? Talking about budget, building something for a long term. But then as we get to a point where it's like, okay, we have a little bit of a retirement, where we're investing a little bit, we're doing these things. How do we know we're using our money wisely?
It's hard to know because they were lying to us and making us not see it before. And then some of these companies have gotten so, there used to be we had a deal with the Wall Street, right? They had a Judeo-Christian undercurrent that made it not get too far far afield. What's happened lately, though, is this kind of insane, ideology. I was actually in a debate a year ago, woke investing, ESG investing versus Catholic faith investing. And the guy said, the reason I got into ESG investing is because of my Catholic faith. And I said, there lies the problem. These misguided sons of guns think they're doing the right thing. It's misguided, well-intentions, right?
Yes.
These companies have gone bananas, though. And I literally said, this kind of crazy ideology cooked up in the faculty lounge in Middlebury's permeated the boardrooms. This guy said, I actually went to Middlebury. I said, oh, goodness gracious. You're right. He was right out of Central Casting. Nice guy, misguided, thinking these companies have gone so far. The hubris of these companies, I say it all the time, to step forward and say, I think it's wrong that Roe v. Wade was struck down. And if an employee of ours wants to have an abortion, we'll give them $4,000. With no regard for the woman who has the courage to have her child, to 50% at least of their customers, 50% of their employees, 50% of their shareholders. Complete disregard, thinking that we were going to simply sit there and say, well, okay, because we've never said anything before. The great news is with technology, we're able to see what we're supporting. We've seen dioceses. I've been in meetings with folks at dioceses saying, look, Bishop, you guys paid for 350 abortions last year. And he said, say that again. Yeah. And I said, you paid for, and their advisors saying, oh, this is completely fade the line. Because their advisors don't know, because the organizations they work for are so dyed in the wool. And so it permeated so many different things. Pornography, is horrific. And we're trying to say, talk about the dignity of the human being created in the image of Jesus Christ and the degradation of women and men. But the idea that we as Catholics are going to meetings or in our community, look at us, we're wonderful, upstanding people, not realizing we have a responsibility to make sure not only are our philanthropic dollars being not invested in ways that are inconsistent with our faith and supporting things and not, but our personal way. We have now the ability. The good news is we've been lied to for a long time. The great news is now technology changed everything.
Yeah.
We're going to be able to see what we're supporting.
So you have an ability, a way in Aquinas for people to screen or be aware of, do an assessment on.
We mean so much by this. We developed a technology called a faith and finance score. We actually put it on our website. Anybody can use it for free.
For free.
They have no connection to us. They could go in, they could do the scoring, they would get it, and no one else would know about it. They'd have their score, and they'd get a detailed list of all the stuff they're supporting in their investments.
Wow. And knowledge is power with it, right? Getting into a place where we can be, it is hard in our world where it doesn't feel like there are always options, right? We try to be really wise and good about where we're giving our tithe, where we're supporting philanthropically, but when you're, investing in XYZ, sometimes your company, this is the option. You've got one one option that's going there. But
when you could push back on the HR department and say, let's add these other options, which we're seeing because companies are starting to say, yeah, we're going to win this thing, which is wonderful, all of us together, because it's so important. So important.
So how do people find out more? Well, before we get to that, any final thoughts for couples today as they're building their lives, they're starting out, they've got a handful of kids, and they want to be successful in raising those kids and having a good marriage and being faithful and not lose in the financial realm as well.
What is the one that I love that said, don't be so arrogant to think that Christ can't work through your stupidity, right? So our misgivings, our shortcomings, I think the fact that God's in charge, he'll take care of us. And I also think something else that I was thinking of quickly, that we forget the impact of what our model has. We think we're doing horribly. People are seeing us in the community. They're yelling at our kid in the back seat. They think we're horrible. And they come to us years later and say, I was always inspired by you and your husband and what you guys did together, which is beautiful. I think of a story about the Sisters of Life that I think is just germane here. Is that one of the women came when we were in New York, and we met her. And what happened was she got pregnant 3 years earlier. Unfortunately, her happens many times. This particular boyfriend said, get out, have an abortion, or get out. She had an abortion, deeply regretted every day for 3 years, realized what a mistake it was, realized what she had done, deeply, deeply regretted. 3 years later, same boyfriend, same situation, she got pregnant again. He hadn't progressed at all. He said, same deal, have an abortion, get out. She said, there's no way I'm going to have an abortion. No way am I going to have an abortion. I realized what I did. It's a horrific mistake. And she said, I had that abortion March 3rd, 2021. And she went back in her daytime. That was Tuesday. I was there at 10 o'clock in the morning. I remember when I went into Planned Parenthood in New York City, there was a woman across the street. She didn't see me, but I saw her. She was praying the rosary. She said, I saw that woman across the street. I think she would help me. Saw her out of the corner of her eye. Goes back 3 years later on a Tuesday, 10 o'clock in the morning. A woman's across the street praying the rosary. Beautiful. She goes over and says, look, you don't know me, but 3 years ago I had an abortion. I can't have another one. I believe you're supposed to help me. She took her Sister's Life. That baby was born. That baby came to the church. The woman got in a new situation. My point is, we have no idea what our witness does and help people. She saw that woman before. So whatever little things we do, whether it's modeling this behavior or loving your wife in public or being, or being overwhelmed with the kids, I think this witness of what you've done in the Messy Family Project, which we admire so much, that witness and say, look, don't take it so seriously. It's a train wreck, but it's a beautiful train wreck.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's what
it's our train wreck.
It's our how would you have it any other way? Can you imagine life without the gifts we've been given? What do you think, Paul?
I agree. I think being intentional, like the board meeting, the mission statement, you have to have those conversations when you're starting out, or else it's just going to be, whatever, and you don't want it to be whatever. You want to get your spouse and your children to heaven. And I think you have to be intentional about how you go about that.
Amen. Amen. And that idea of witness and intentionality, those are great comments to kind of end on. How can we find out more about both where to get the book and other resources?
FinanceWealth.com would show them the Faith and Finance score. Would show them a bunch of interviews we've done. Would show them a link to our great conference, Catholics in the Shore, which is coming up as May. Mike Schmitz is going to be there. All the great guys. Father Boniface is going to be there. There's a guy that died. I can't wait to hear your story. He died. He's alive. He's telling the story.
Wait a second.
And he was gone for 90 minutes, I think, which I don't even understand how it's possible. And he's back, and he wrote a book about it that's unbelievable. Yeah, it's unbelievable. And we had a great priest last year, the year before. He was great. Who was the guy from Alabama? He's a good dude. Father, the priest. CrossFit guy. Stephen Gadbury. They wrote a book about him called A Year in the Life for Priests.
Okay.
Well, he came to the beach, and they said, look, we got in the morning, we'll do a little exercise. Last year, Sister Pia Jude and her twin sister led a pickleball class, but he took us on the beach. I said, look, for this group, I'm in shape, so go easy on us CrossFit guys. He didn't even know how to go that easy. Could not. But I think they'll learn about Catholics Ashore. They'll learn about Aquinas Wealth Advisors. They'll learn about buying the book Faith and Finance. And also, if they just want to take their Faith and Finance course, that's up to they can to do that. Institutions, individuals, and then we're trying to radically transform the world.
That's awesome. Let's do it. Let's transform the world one family at a time.
Amen.
All right.
Thanks so much. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation. Alicia couldn't be a part of that conversation.
Yeah.
But I love when I can talk to somebody who's really made it successfully in life, who also has grown in their faith throughout that time,
and grown in their
marriage, right?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And some tons of great takeaways. Maybe you have some of your own, but we wanted to share some takeaways that we got from that conversation with Chris and Molly. The first thing, put your spouse first. That was so like burned
Evident.
into my mind, right? You know, from the way that Chris spoke about not only the way they connected, making their spouse a priority, no matter what's happening at work, no matter how busy things were. But also, I was really impressed with how you talk about your spouse when they aren't present, the way you show respect and love for them, always in front of others. The second idea is being a witness in the workplace, maybe putting up that crucifix or a sacred image, but holding a high standard for yourself and being bold about sharing your faith in the workplace. Never accept the standards of the world, right? When we're talking about trying to do things, if you feel like both of you have to work to get ahead or to buy a house, don't accept that as that's what everybody does.
Right.
If you want to live like no one else, you've got to today live like no one else, right? You got to do things differently. Think outside the box.
So one thing that really impressed me that Molly said is to make time for the things that really matter and to be intentional about how you spend your time as well as how you spend your money. And also it's very clear that Chris and Molly have been a blessing to so many people. Right. So if God has blessed you, be a blessing to others. God is going to give you a mission. Respond to that mission. All of us have a mission, right? As a family, and God is going to call you in a particular way. So respond to that. So maybe this is something you want to discuss with your spouse. Maybe you want to discuss with your spouse, hey, how can we make each other a priority? How can we prioritize our time and our money in a way that says that we're putting each other first? Right. What's something that you can change in your schedule to make that clear? And second, what is your mission? How is God calling you to serve 2 by 2? How is God sending you out 2 by 2 to serve as a couple?
All right. And if you like this episode, please share it with a friend and review and comment on online for us. And as always, may the Lord bless you and keep you.